So I'm in the process of working on a video called The Complete and Comprehensive Theory of Everything in Under 60 Minutes. And I thought it might be fun to see if we can't produce a abridged version of that and squeeze the entire complete theory of everything into a single TikTok video. So here we go. Let me start off by saying that I believe at the core foundation of every standard model, all of the different standard models that define the sciences we believe are true, lies an assumption. One would think the foundation that all of these different standard models are built on should be a law, but I believe it's an assumption. I believe we assumed some form of finite time and space, only because we couldn't prove it's infinite. We chose to label that as speculation. Well, we also can't prove it's finite. So toggle that assumption. Let's assume the infinite time and infinite space, and then let's see what the implications of that would be. Let's weigh the implications of that. And when we do so, it amazes me the number of mysteries and paradoxes of science that just unravel at our feet. And like I said, I'll get into a whole lot more detail, but here we go. Let's see if we can't cover an entire theory of everything. And what have I got left? 9 minutes or so? Okay, so here we go. I believe that we live in a multiverse, but not an inflating multiverse, not an M-World's multiverse directly. I believe our multiverse is made from an infinite number of separate, successive, nested pockets of relative pressurized space-time, mass energy, heat radiation. Nested pockets because each pocket forms due to the celestial body's desire to play follow the leader. All celestial bodies out there are always trying to play follow the leader. The most massive bodies drag all their children along for the ride, and in doing so, they create a pocket of space-time. All bodies that move together share the same relative trajectory and relative velocity, and so therefore, because we know the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, all of these bodies are sharing the same base perception of both space and time. More so, within their parent frame of reference, all gravitational fields acting upon them, as well as their internal velocity within that frame of reference, further refines their perception of space and time that they in turn pass on to their children bodies. This is a nested succession, call it if you like, infinite regression, and something that science has tried very hard to stay away from. But instead, if we embrace it and examine the implications, I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so one of the theories that this would propose is the theory of dissipating gravitational tensor mesh strength of successive parent pockets of spacetime to explain dark energy. If our universe, our visible universe, has siblings, and they're moving based on the laws of physics as we know it, they create a frame of reference, and that parent also has a frame of reference in succession. Well, within our own frame of reference, what we do know is that the areas where there's the highest gravitational strength, the overlapping gravity wells of all the relative objects in an area, create a tensor mesh of gravitational attraction, and it fights off dark energy. And in the areas where it is weakest, we see dark energy take over. So if that is happening at each successive level, what would happen is all orbits lose energy over time. No orbit has infinite energy, so all orbits decay. We see that now with our moon slowly moving away from our Earth, and our Earth and planets slowly moving away from the sun theoretically slowly moving away from the center of our galaxy. Slowly, but there are outer star systems and planetary systems that are moving outwards. It is the natural state of nature for that to happen. But as that happens, the binding to space-time of these individual gravitational tensor meshes of our parents and great-grandparents, they lose their cohesion, and to us it would actually look like the fabric of time, our time, is being ripped apart. And that's kind of what we see. Not only that, because there's a succession of them, over time, our parent would be seeing a greater dissipation of its binding to its space-time, and thus exponentially over time we would see an increasing rate of expansion, and we do see that also. The theory of aggregated pocket gravity. This one's pretty simple. I'm surprised nobody figured this one out yet. These bodies, all sharing the same relative trajectory and relative velocity, would have gravitational waves. Okay, gravity moves as an EM wave. I don't know the specifics yet. It moves at the speed of light. It behaves like a wave. It is a wave. And waves that are in phase can increase in amplitude. And when you increase the amplitude of waves, because they're in phase, what you end up doing is exponentially increasing the energy carried by that wave. And so the pockets of spacetime, a single planetary system, our total aggregate gravitational attraction to a distant body is greater than the sum of our individual gravitational attractions, because the waves will aggregate together and produce a stronger gravitational force. And for a galaxy, when you have many of these star systems, again, all sharing the same relative trajectory and relative velocity of that parent black hole, they, again, all of those aggregate gravities aggregate even further. Okay, we just passed the halfway mark and we still got a lot to go, so I'm going to start moving a little bit faster. Successive collision theory would occur when two massive pockets, far, far removed from our scale factor, pass through each other. Two dense stellar nurseries could collide at speeds approaching or possibly exceeding twice the speed of light. The amount of heat and energy released across a discrete span of space during a discrete span of time would cool down, create a CMB, and it would explain a lot of mysteries, like, harmonic galactic periods, harmonic galactic planes, harmonic galactic quasar axes. It would explain both blue transients and red transients, and solve the horizon problem without inflation. Makes a lot more sense than a tiny little ball if our starting size was closer to 60 or 70% the size that the CMB was when we were able to measure it. This would continue inwards as well, and below our quantum level would exist mass and energy at smaller pieces. If there were waves of energy and particles and just plain follow the leader, we would predict, we'd have a probabilistic wave function due to superposition and tunneling, because the interactions, both repulsive and attraction at a subquantum level, would cause particles to move out of divert out of their desired path. It would explain virtual particles that pop out of nowhere, as energy consolidates at a subquantum level and manifests up into our frame of reference. Vacuum energy is visible. I mean, it's pretty obvious, guys. Subquantum foam here. It would predict that mass energy would bend space-time, because within space-time is mass and energy. At smaller scales we can't measure, but that mass and energy is there. It would cause it to appear to bend to the will of mass, and that happens. I believe we can use general relativity along with Coulomb's law to come up with a way to apply our fine structure constant against a fine structure constant of each, an average of fine structure constants within each of the separate pockets of subquantum gravity, where electrostatic charges are causing a attraction between particles, and the closest particles attract the next particles, There would be an aggregation of a Coulomb's law type formula that would apply based on some delta between the alpha fine structure constant we know and what these individual fine structure constant would be between them, and we could apply that law up against but not to determine the force of gravity, but to develop the force of gravity at each individual point in space and time, because all of these overlapping gravity wells all come into play. And so general relativity, Newton's law is a very specialized case of general relativity, where there's nothing else involved but these two objects and no other outside forces. But that's not what really happens. Okay, we're almost down to a minute left. What do we got left? Theory of subatomic evolution. It would explain first life on this planet if it evolved through the atomic layer, through the Planck scales. If evolution is an infinite process, then there are species that will evolve to take over their universe. They will evolve to however long it takes, get to all the different places they need to be and evolve as a species and be able to evolve through the atomic layer. It's a little bit far-fetched, I agree, but it makes sense. And it would explain tinnitus. If at the end of this video, you go into a quiet room and listen to your ears for 5-10 minutes maybe, you'll hear them. There's little tiny sounds. Sometimes they're longer and louder. Okay, about out of time. But those are, they could be alien communications trying to reach out and not even knowing they're inside an ear. And I'm about done, so take care. Thank you for listening. More videos to come. Take care. Bye.